here we are at the Sea and Sand Motel. A very special deal to me. It was one of the first commercial properties I sold early in my career. It's a 22-unit property. Was fortunate enough to list and then found the buyer and sold the property myself. It sold way back in 1988 and actually sold for $1.7 million. Okay, the Sea and Sand Motel, located right off West Cliff Drive. Again, a little bit about the property. Obviously, the Sea and Sand Motel is a landmark property in Santa Cruz. It's right on the bluff, overlooks Cowles, overlooks the municipal wharf, overlooks the boardwalk. It sits right next door to the Dream Inn. And this was, as I mentioned, one of the first commercial deals I ever did and really got my feet wet and kind of put me on the map as far as commercial real estate. How I ended up getting that deal, where did the buyer come from? Actually, I was doing an open house on a residential property. A buyer came in that had stayed at the Sea and Sand year after year for vacation. There's a little duplex part of the Sea and Sand and wondered if that was ever for sale. I said, I don't know, but I'm going to find out for you. I ended up locating the seller, was a doctor up in the Bay Area, found his number, ended up call him and his wife repeatedly, asking them potentially if they had any interest in selling the property. They probably told me no less than 5 times that they weren't interested, but were very polite. And I kind of detected in their voice that maybe someday they would. So I just kept after them. Finally, after months and months, I picked up the phone and asked them again. They said, you know what, Andy, meet me up at my office in the Bay Area on Friday. I want to know what you think it's worth. So there I was, 2 years new in the business, did not know anything about how to price a motel, but I had an opportunity. And what did I do? I ended up calling every motel owner that I could find in the Santa Cruz area and asking for 10 minutes of their time, and did my due diligence. Talked to many of the commercial appraisers here in Santa Cruz. And by the time I went to that presentation, I had a pretty darn good feel of what I thought that property was worth. In fact, I ended up competing against numerous brokers here in Santa Cruz for that listing. And when I was done with my presentation, the doctor looked at me in the eye and said, that's exactly what I think it's worth, and we're going to list this property with you. So that's how I got the buyer. Well, after I had this property listed, I had to go sell it. So through my due diligence, I had talked, as I mentioned, to many of the motel owners here in town. Several of which, of course, who expressed interest. I didn't tell them where the property was, but I said I'm working on a motel in the area. I ended up calling one of the prominent motel owners right here in the Santa Cruz area, and of course he wanted to take a look at the property. I showed the property to him and his entire staff on a Friday morning, and by Friday afternoon he'd called me back and said, I want to put an offer into the property. Of course I was ecstatic and asked him, who his agent was that would represent him. He said, I don't really have an agent. Why don't you come down and write this offer up for me? Again, very ecstatic. I ended up writing that offer, represented both the seller and the buyer on the transaction, and we ended up closing. The deal was an all-cash offer. It was sold, as I said, to a local motel owner who knew the area, really didn't care about what the previous owner had done with the property, because they in fact had plans, and they are still the current owner of that property today. And that again was sold in 1988. Thanks very much.